I've been freaking out for weeks. I don't know how to deal with this on my own anymore, so I'm turning to the internet to see if there is any sort of comfort or understanding. Reddit was my mum's favourite site, and she talked to a lot of people on there, but none of them are responding to my messages. If you're having a hard time understanding me, just try to remember that English is my sixth language. I also speak Franconian, Finnic, Marathi, Pashto, and Talk. Well, I mostly read Talk. I'm not much of a speaker. Some of the vocalizations are a bit of a tongue twister. Not even Mum could speak it. I'm Evan. A few weeks ago, my mum died. She fell down the stairs and broke her neck. She had a disability affecting most of her body, so the fall was far more dangerous for her than it would have been for me. I always told her she ought to be more careful. Sure, the house was pretty much tailored to compensate for her illness, but there was always more to do. She had so many imperfections. I've been homeschooled most of my life. Mum needed me around the house, so I was rarely allowed to go outside. She always said that when I turned into an adult in my own right, I would be allowed to leave and do whatever I wanted. Until then, I was under her protection and care. I'd go swimming, fishing, hiking, all kinds of stuff in my spare time. Anything that got me out of the house for a while. I learned to read before I could even talk, and I started writing on a typewriter pretty much the same year. Talking, if anything, was way harder than typing. Sometimes I sat with Mum, surfing the web. I was allowed to use a computer, but only under supervision. I wasn't allowed to mess with the code, but I was allowed to keep any books on programming I could find at the garbage dump. I couldn't see any video sites online, and most images were blocked by a custom filter. Mum wanted me to form my own image of the world and not be a slave to perceived realities of the less eloquent. When she died, I didn't know what to do. I've never really done housework, and I wasn't allowed to go to the store on my own. But I'm not stupid. I know about all kinds of things. I just haven't had a chance to explore and experience it for myself. And hell, Mum and I could live off the grid. So, with one less mouth to feed, I figured it'd be easier for me. Well, it would be, if the chickens would calm down. They've never really enjoyed my company. Getting to know the house without my mum's help has been a pain. All of my mum's tools were tailored for her physique and disability, so nothing is really made for me. I think, to her, having a normal child was a constant reminder of her weakness. She didn't want me to get used to her way of doing things, as it was imperfect and, in the long run, useless. So, when it was time for me to learn, I had to start from scratch. It has been tough, to say the least. I started exploring my surroundings more. The first thing I noticed was that a lot of people around here have a similar disability as my mum. I've never really interacted with people around these parts before, but they all look weird in different ways. Frail, weak, small. Like there's something wrong with their bone structure. I've seen the mailman up close, and I sometimes see others going by in their cars. I've long thought there was something wrong with the water, and I thought Mum had been using some sort of filter to keep me healthy. Of course, it isn't that simple. The first thing I really wanted to do when I lost her, after I'd burned the body, was to get to know my neighbours. It isn't as easy as it sounds. There's this one family who lives not too far from the lake that I've really wanted to meet, but my mum told me they were some sort of religious nuts. She called them stupid, the kind of people who don't keep pet frogs, even though they live by the lake. So stupid. I figured I'd watch them for a while before introducing myself, just to see if they really were as weird as Mum made them out to be. I was so disappointed. Not only did they have the same affliction as the others, but they didn't even try to isolate themselves. Not that they socialised with any normal people, but still. It was terrifying to see their crippled bodies writhe around the house, pretending to be a normal family. Barely a hair on their body, covering themselves in thick layers of cloth. Others had so much hair it impaired them. Their kids were tiny and weak. They used tools and accessories for everything, unable to perform even the simplest task without aid. I just couldn't understand why Mum wanted me to stay away from them. These weren't dangerous people, they were just Pathetic. Creatures, more than anything. But there was something about them that scared me. I could imagine their stone-like faces scrunched up in anger and fear, hounding me. In enough numbers, they could kill me and everything I loved. I was scared that they'd come and take my chickens away, or stomp over my cabbage field. So, after a few days of watching my neighbours, I decided to let them be. They could keep their weird kids and brutal lives. I had to go further. There was an event at the local high school. I tried my best to camouflage myself like one of the sick people, but it was difficult. In the end, I decided I'd watch from the glass roof. It is hard staying hidden in plain sight. I'd rather just stay out of sight entirely. It was horrifying. Screeching and cheering, this mass of imperfect beings. They dressed in vibrant colours and sang without harmony. They gathered in blocks, lines after lines of them, some pale, some dark, all broken. I think they were hurting each other. There was a lot of screaming and loud noises. They couldn't even yell that loud, so they used whistles to communicate simple instructions. I just couldn't force myself to watch. It made me queasy. As I snuck away, a pair of them caught a glimpse at me in the parking lot. They were screaming and pointing, like I'd walked in on some sort of sacred ritual. I just kept running. I lost them by climbing a tree, but I was moments away from just wringing their necks and leaving them there. Instead, they get to live, and I couldn't even tell them apart from the others if I tried. They're just a part of the mass now. For the next few nights, I couldn't sleep, no matter how tempting my hammock was. Instead, I focused on orienting myself and finding out what was really going on. I had the internet. Information superhighway. It took a lot of effort to get by all the security measures my mum put in, but I'm an excellent learner. Mum always said I was too clever for my own good. I can keep a steady 320 words per minute without breaking a sweat, and I can read most programming languages. I have a great memory. Typing them out is one thing, but understanding them is easy. Most communication boils down to a singular language space anyway, kinda like how I learned to speak talk. Mum knew about this and had several safeguards, but she didn't count on me having all the time in the world so suddenly. It took her months to set this up, but I tore it down in an afternoon. I made my own OS and named it Barb, after my mum. Once I got online, I had a panic attack. I thought all my communication was being routed through a filter or something, as all I could see were these sickly creatures. On news sites, in YouTube videos, even on Reddit, all I could see were these creatures. Let me explain. They're not like normal people. They're shorter, frail, and with these weirdly small heads. Their necks are so soft and thin, they can barely even hold their heads up. They're missing limbs, and some of them tried to cover their imperfections with cloth and makeup. Some of them look like my mum, and some of them I can barely even tell apart. They're everywhere. I slowly concluded that there were two possibilities. Either my ISP was filtered, or these creatures were everywhere. And no, nothing pointed to my ISP being the culprit. I checked the pings and tried VPNs. I'm starting to think that this is just what people look like. I just don't understand. Mum said she had a disability and that I was a normal one. My usual 8 eyes were the correct number. She told me all my arms were beautiful and that my thorax was a healthy size for a boy my age. Yes, I can fold into myself to camouflage with the sick people, but she told me I should never try to be something I'm not. She even excused herself for being weird and eating boiled chicken eggs instead of having them raw and whole. How else are you going to get your calcium? She always boiled, fried and ruined her food instead of eating it fresh with all the nutrients. She refused to even try fresh rabbit when I was learning how to set traps. Her sickness made her slow and predictable, but I loved her nonetheless. She always seemed so static to me, always having the same number of eyes, ears, mouths and limbs. Like, if she wanted to eat an apple, she'd have to climb the tree and pick it. I could just extend my tongue and pluck it. If she heard a noise, she'd have to twist her entire body to look that way. I could just open an eye in that direction. But these people, outside, they might remind me of her, but they scare me. There are so many of them. So many of you. I don't know. I started watching movies to better understand how to move, how to camouflage and how to fit in. To speak with just a single tongue, to keep my extra arms folded into my chest. I can look like the sick people from a distance, but it's like trying to live as a tense spring. Eventually, it's all going to burst out. I can't hold it forever. It just feels like everything is made and built for someone else, for the short, frail people, not me. I feel out of place. I hate seeing them, thinking that I'm the one who doesn't fit in. It feels like waking up into a nightmare. I don't know where to find others like me, or if I'm missing something. Am I really the odd one out? I'm scared what these people might do if they find me, and I'm still not convinced that they are the norm. I've never felt like Mum was hiding anything from me. She was always so open about introducing me to the world once I was an adult. I'm turning 21 this year. I can learn a lot in a short amount of time, but the unbridled internet is just exhausting. I think the event I witnessed was basketball. How have I never heard of this? How have I never heard of Wikipedia? I think I'm going to leave this place. I don't want anyone to come looking for my mum, and I know there are people who do. The people who saw me in the parking lot might come looking for me. They might hurt me. Mum said that's what happened to Dad. I keep coming back to asking myself this one question. What is more likely, that the world has been hidden away from me, or that I've been hidden away from the world? The most probable answer terrifies me. Please comfort me. Please be normal. Please